that, because if we're getting people from churches to come, they won't come till after noon, but I don't know. They're Jehovah's Witness, so we're trying to also work on that too and see if we can get them. They're not real active there, but hopefully we can get see the Christian witness for them. So thankfully, Derek was really touched, because he was afraid he's going to have to just drop her off and come back and go to work, because he can't afford to lose his pay. But with the auction and all that, he should be able to stay with her this week. I mean, can you imagine it? No, this week at Barnes. Yeah. But her husband, he's going to be able to stay with her. He's afraid he's going to have to just leave her there while she's sick and going through all this, and so he can be with her now. All right. So if you want to just head out to the Armory, you know where it is, the City Park, and that's where it is. They'll have the meal going on there after church, and it's just until the food runs out. Food was donated. He works at U.S. Food, and U.S. Food donated food, so it should be good food. Okay, and that's their fish fry, and ribbon potatoes. Yeah.
It's at the Army, though, right?
At the Armory, yeah, in the big room there. Yeah. The event center, they call it. They call it the event center. Okay, and then the auction's going on in there too. All right, so that's that. We got our Advent service this Wednesday. Soup supper's at 6. First one is all filled up as far as people signed up for the second one. We need, I think it just said dessert's the only thing we still need on the second one. And there's not a third one. The third one is our silent week. We call it Silent Night Week. Okay, I call it not Dead Week. You don't want to call it Dead Week. Okay, because that used to be the children's Christmas program, but now that's when we have the live nativity the week before. So that one weekend is going to be swamped with work activity. We'll have Friday live nativity, Saturday Christmas caroling, Sunday church and congregational party after church on 15th, 16th, and 17th. Okay? All right, so that's all I had. The Bible class did pay for the sodas. Well, we haven't paid for it yet, but I did get them from Country Mart, and it costs $113.60 for this meal, the fundraiser for the meal. So it wasn't as expensive as I thought it might be. I thought it might be a couple hundred, but all right. So that's taken care of too. Okay, we're on chapter 22. All right, these were our big words last week. I lost my eraser. Where did oh, there it is. Okay. No, I know, I found it. It's right here on the table. All right. Sycophancy, we might do that again today because Bev knows all about it. Right, Bev? You were filling us in on all that last week. Oh, Bev! We did it last week.
Sycophant is a person who is obsequious.
Exactly. All right, and that means a person who loves to flatter people for self-serving purposes. Yeah, loves to talk and flatter people for self-serving purposes. That's a sycophant. So sycophancy, that's what that means. All right, we're on chapter 22, verse 3. All right, so here we go. These again, many of these are just obviously common sense kind of things, but they're also very significant. A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it. All right, duh, right? It's one of those duh. All right, what does it mean, though, that a prudent man sees danger? So why would he see danger? I mean, simple stuff. I'm just going to get a conversation. He's looking ahead. He's not just wandering around aimlessly, either his head in the sky or his head on the ground, eyes on the ground, not looking ahead. And I don't just mean practically walking. I mean, he's looking towards where his life is going, and he's intentionally planning it out and seeing the like the results. If I take this path or do this path, this decision, that decision, he thinks it through. Okay, whereas now it doesn't say the fool, it says the simple. Because remember, the simple is the one who's just kind of ignorant, doesn't know, and can be shaped still. But the simple just keep wandering on, not paying any attention to what's going on. Now, honestly, if we were to think about this, it makes simple sense. Yet, how often do we continue to do the same thing too? We know it's not good for us to do something sometimes. or eat something, drink something, whatever, a certain whatever. And I don't mean sinful activity necessarily. I'm just saying stuff that's not healthy for you or whatever. It's not good for you. I mean, I do this. We all know I do this, okay? And you just keep doing it. How stupid is that, right? And yet that's me, okay? And so, I mean, this is one of those other proverbs like, come on. Come on, do you really want to keep doing this or not? And that's how it goes. But of course you get it. The simple keep going and suffer for it. All right, the next one is a really good positive one. Let's look at this one. Humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor in life. Okay, we had another one like this that where it mentions two things. If you have these two qualities, it equates to 3 blessings. Okay, so it multiplies. It's not just the same. But so if we're to think about it, how does humility and fear of the Lord lead to wealth? And wealth is actually it is wealth, riches. But I don't know if we're meant to think of it in monetary ways. But wealth and honor is also glory and life. How does humility and fear of the Lord lead to that? Or receive that, or bring that. I mean, because this is contrary to the way the world thinks. If you're humble in the ways of the world, you got nothing. People are going to walk all over you. You're going to get nothing because you're not asserting yourself. You're not seeking your own advantages, and you're going to be walked all over. Right? The humble are. That's how the world sees it. But how is that actually humility to our advantage? What is humility, in other words?
It's subserving yourself to God.
Yes, humility is the key, is humbling yourself or submitting yourself to God. That's why humility and fear of the Lord go together, right? Because when you're humble, it's not just, oh, I'm a nobody. No, it's like I'm humble before the Lord, and I fear the Lord, which means I have this respect for the Lord, that I do not rely on myself. I turn to the Lord. I can do all things through Him who gives me strength, not on myself. And so my reliance and dependence is upon the Lord.
Humility is the opposite of self-reliance.
Yes. Right. Or pride, right? Pride is self-reliance. Pride is I'm good enough on my own. I can do this on my own.
I think of those two things synonymous.
And that's how we should. So humility is not weakness. Humility is, actually, I guess it is weakness, but it's actually it's not a foolish, ignorant, unintelligent kind of thing. Go ahead.
It's the fear of the Lord that empowers humility.
Exactly.
Have them both.
That's what I'm saying.
Have one without the other.
Right. If humility on its own is not it. Exactly. Humility and the fear of the Lord. So that's why I was trying to say, it's not coming out as clear as I want it to be. Humility is only valuable because you fear the Lord. So it's coupled with like you're saying, it's coupled with the fear of the Lord, so that I will not boast of anything that's coming from myself, Paul says. But everything I have comes from the Lord. He's the source of everything good. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. So that's my fear of the Lord. My humility is saying, then I will accept that instead of trying to do it on my own. I will submit to this way of thinking, to the Lord. Okay.
I think the old saw about pride comes before the fall is very true, because
Yeah.
if you rely totally, how many times have you relied totally on yourself and found out you're not quite as smart as you think?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you are. You think you know it all. You think you're capable and all that, and yeah.
Overlook, when you're in that mindset, you end up overlooking the signals that tell you you're not on the right track. It's going back to the previous.
Yeah, exactly. It does go back to previous verse. The simple keep going. They don't look ahead. Exactly. So this is the counterpart in the positive way to the simple who just don't pay attention, just keep going and suffer for it. So this is, humility and fear of the Lord. And this is what it brings. And so it brings this too, because like I said, every good and perfect gift comes from God. And so the humble person who fears the Lord is relying upon the Lord. Okay, these are a lot of the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. All right, it's all when you see yourself as nothing of yourself and by yourself and with your own abilities, then you're going to look for that person who can do that, and that's the Lord.
It's like being in a profession where everything goes right for a while, and you think you can walk on water.
Yeah.
You can walk on water, and all of a sudden everything falls apart. It's knowing that you're not the end all be all.
Yeah.
Engineer that won't listen because when somebody tells him he's designed the bridge wrong until it all falls apart.
Yeah, until it all falls in. Right. Or biblically speaking, this is the passage. So if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you do not fall. No temptation to seize you except what is common man. And God is faithful. He will rescue. He'll deliver you from the temptation.
And asking for God's guidance in what we do.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. So, like I said, this is a really good one. And so humility in this sense is saying, I'm not one of those cocky, arrogant, I can do all things, I know all things. No, I'm dependent upon the Lord. And he will, and he, why not? Because he's the Lord. He's all knowing and all giving and all powerful, everything else. And so rely upon him and seek him. Right. So that, and the next one actually kind of goes with this, but in a different way, because it's talking about more about sin as opposed to just knowledge. In the paths of the wicked lie thorns and snares, but he who guards his soul stays far from them. Okay, so in the path of the wicked lie thorns and snares. Okay, all right, so think of it this way. When temptation arises and you give in to temptation, what happens? Right. You fall into the thorns and the snares, right? That's how I see it. So in the path, as you walk in your path of life, you encounter temptations. Everyone encounters temptations every day. Everything in life is a temptation. Most of them you don't pay any attention to because you don't have troubles with them. But everything is life. But if the temptation is the temptation to veer away from God, to wander away from the Lord and the paths of righteousness, and to follow his ways, or temptation's ways. And when you do, anything off the straight and narrow path is full of thorns and snares. It's going to cause problems. So when you give in to the temptation, you can expect, again, to suffer for it, like Proverbs verse 3 says. Okay? But he who guards his soul stays far from them. So the person who looks at his life and realizes that what is important is that I stay as pure and holy as I possibly can, and he's going to see temptations and say, okay, I can see how this is pleasurable, I can see how this might be something fun then to do, but it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And so you stay on the straight and narrow. That's kind of how I see this one. It's pretty straightforward. Straight and narrow, you get it? Straightforward. Pretty straight. Pretty straightforward statement there, but it is so true. And honestly, every one of us, if you look at your life and the times when sometimes you got into trouble, not just because of things happening, you could look back and say, I got in trouble because I made this decision, and this decision set me in the wrong direction. Had I guarded my soul better, I would have been okay. Okay. All right. So moving on. Okay, now we get to the train a child. All right. Train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it. Probably the proverb that if anyone can quote a proverb, this is probably the proverb people quote. Okay. What I found is interesting in this too, there's nothing, I'm not going to say anything controversial about this. What's interesting about this is that this is the one proverb too that he writes the most about. I got two full pages on this one. Usually it's about that much he writes on this, but he has 2 full pages on just this proverb. I thought it was kind of interesting. And it has to do, and it's not anything controversial. Like I said, it's just pretty straightforward, but a part of it has to do with what the words mean. The word for train, because this is the thing, I mean, go tell you how it works in the Hebrew. The word for train is the interesting part where you make the discussion go. He says, literally, it says, consecrate a child. not train. And now it's been translated train, but the word is consecrate. And this is interesting because this is the word that was used when buildings were dedicated, like the temple and other things, when they were dedicated or items for the temple. It said consecrate it. So set it aside. It's not set aside, that's sanctified, but it's kind of like consecrated, dedicated to the Lord. All right, so like I said, it's been used in actually not even the temple. It says when you build your own house, dedicate a new house. This is the word that was used in Deuteronomy, but it's also for the temple and for other things in the temple, the altar and all that, and for the city wall of Jerusalem and Nehemiah. This is the word that was used. So so if you translated train, it would be train a wall, but it's not. It's consecrate. It's okay to say train, but you just need to understand in the Hebrew, this is what it really means, to consecrate, to dedicate it, to devote it to that purpose, okay, to something like that. So that's what train literally means. Yeah.
When you say you train a child, or you dedicate a child,
Yeah.
consecrate a child, you are, as a parent, you should be entrusting them to God, bringing them up in a godly way.
Right.
That's where the training fits in there.
Exactly. So training is not a bad translation. I'm just trying to highlight the word train and give you a fuller meaning of it. Right, and so it is what you're saying, and really that's what it is. So you go to the 2 Timothy passage, all Scripture is inspired by God and is useful for teaching, training in righteousness. Okay, so that's how you do this. So what does it mean to train a child? It means to devote that child to God through His Word. So you're instructing the child, just practically speaking, you're instructing the child in God's Word, right? I think we know that. Like I said, there's nothing really insightful I'm going to tell you that he says on this here, but it's just kind of reinforcing this. So you're instructing the child in the ways of the Lord, and the only way you can do that is by teaching them the Bible. That's the only way it can happen. You can't do it any other way but by teaching them the Bible. Okay, you live by example too. I mean, that was a line a long time before we said, kids, what you do is caught more than it's taught. That was the line I was trying to remember. They watch you more than they listen to you, but they listen to you. But so what you do better back up what you're saying. All right. So they do listen to what you're saying. So you do train them in the ways of the Lord. You train them in God's Word. That's what train a child means. Okay. But now it literally is not translated train a child in the way he should go. It's literally supposed to be translated consecrate a child. And this shows a Hebrewism. Consecrate a child according to the mouth of his way. That's what the word is. It literally, I can read that part of Hebrew. I know that part. It is, well, I didn't get to consecrate, but a child according to the mouth of his way. It's the word mouth. It's a Hebrewism, which means according to his way. Okay? But it's just literally, to me, funny. That's how we, different languages, how they have little slang that we have too in the English that we don't think anything about. Someone else learning our language is like, what does that mean? That's weird. Okay, but so according to the mouth of his way, literally in English would mean according to his way. But it's not, note how it says according to his way. Here the English says train a child according to the way he should go. That's not literally what it says. So according to his way, and here the commentator is pointing out, is pointing out something that's really, I think we know this as parents, but it's really kind of helpful to hear this. Every child's different. Every child learns differently. Every child has different gifts and abilities. You still teach them the way of the Lord, but you teach it that fits his way of learning or his way of applying into certain gifts or abilities. That's why what he's saying, the emphasis here now is on the possessive, pronominal possessive his way, not just the way, so that everyone's rubber stamped in a assembly line exactly coming out the same way. But each person learns their own way, and they do things in they use God's gifts and abilities that he's given them in their own different ways. So I mean, when Paul talks about the spiritual gifts, that we all have different spiritual gifts. So according to his way, okay. And you know, and this is the illustration of if it works or not. I remember in confirmation, I kind of learned this with confirmation. I don't have big classes, which is good because kids learn differently. We had one boy at the Houston church. He was totally by himself. And the kid, he really had trouble with learning. Because I think it was more his ADD. And he just couldn't. So, and I was doing classes in the summer, intensive, so it's like double classes every Tuesday and Thursday. So he come in there, he sat down, and within 30 seconds of me starting, he'd fall asleep. He'd just fall asleep within 30 seconds. I mean, it's always first. Well, few yawns first, then he falls asleep. So I said, "All right, Ryan." This is Ryan Lane. I said, "Ryan, get up." And so he got up. And I said, "Walk around and listen while I'm talking." And he did. And then I'd stop every 10 minutes or so. I said, "What did I just say?" And he'd rattle it right off. As soon as he sat down, fall asleep. That's how he learned. And he learned it by, now I couldn't do it for his whole class because he would be disrupted. So thankfully he was the only one in the class. But that's what I get when, according to his way, that's how he learned. Okay? And that's how he could learn. Otherwise he would have failed if he were with the whole class because he would have slept the whole time. It would have been really hard. But that's what I'm getting at, what he's saying here. According to his way means do that approach that best suits the child. And the child's ability to learn. Got it? All right. Okay. So that's true. And then, okay. Of course, it does say in the way he should go. And then, okay. No, he says a whole bunch on the best way. Okay. Okay. Then it also is pointing out here that when it says child, it does mean child, but child in Hebrew can refer to a 30-year-old or 20-something-year-old. Okay, so another way of looking at that would be also a new convert to Christianity, and maybe he's a young man or a young woman or something like that, or even an old man or a woman, and they're still a child. You train that child according to his ability or her ability to learn. But you're still teaching the same truth, but it's applying it in a way that child can acquire it. Okay, and so the word child in this sense can also be thought of as like an apprentice, or you're the tutor and they're the tutelage. Okay, but they're learning from you. Got it? That's really it. Okay, and then when he's old, he will not turn from it. Now that's just a general observation. It's not a promise, and that's the part that I think some Christians have trouble with because they have a wayward child, and it's like, well, there's this proverb that promises that he'll never turn away. It's like, well, it's not really making the promise. It's just making a blanket statement. It's a blanket statement or observation that if a child is trained, they tend to stay with the training. Not always, but they tend to.
Not always, but at least they have the foundation.
Yes. Right. They do have the foundation, and often, and he even points this out because we all know this too, often they get into their high school, college years and decide to do things on their own, and they get married and they realize I need to settle down. It doesn't always happen, but they settle down, they get back, and they realize this is important because now they realize I got a child, I need to train my child, right? And I don't want because they love their children, they don't want their children to be wayward and wandering and disobedient and all that, so they realize I need to get back to church. Again, it doesn't always happen. Yeah.
This one used as a once saved, always
Yeah. Not a once saved, always saved. No. He's not going to be talking. He's you know how Proverbs are. They're blanket statements, general observations. They're not prophecies or promises. They're just, this is way, if you look at life, this is how life tends to be. They're not universal statements, though. Probability is a good word. Yes, they're probabilities. Right. And the probability is that way. Obviously, if you didn't train them, they'd have nothing to come back to. So if you train them and dedicate and consecrate, then there is a chance, all right, if they wander away, that they'll come back. But otherwise, we all know that if we were all, if all of you were raised in a Christian home, and I'm thinking, this is just the way I'm thinking, maybe it was not this way with you. At this time of the year, you tend to flash back to your young days. Christmas at church, getting ready for the children's Christmas program because you're a kid, doing all this, getting ready for the Christmas Eve service. Get that bag, paper bag with the apple and the orange and the nuts and the candy in it coming out of church, right? All those memories come back, and don't they? Didn't you all get those? Okay, all those come back. I assumed everyone got that if you went to Christmas. And you threw up. That's not a pleasant memory. Okay, well, some of us have pleasant memories. The rest of us have pleasant memories. Throw up. All right, okay. So that kind of stuff. So it's those fond memories that we have of being raised in a Christian home. Okay, and so that's what I see too as part of what this is like. And sometimes with older kids, when they are out on their own and they get to this season of the year, they may fondly recall, oh yeah, I remember back at home growing up. And those are the things that may trigger a return kind of thing. All right. That's what I said, may trigger a return. Right. You hope they do. Right. But so again, he pretty spent 2 pages on this proverb alone. Okay. So I thought that was interesting because now the next one, he has 4 lines. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Okay, borrower. Okay. Again, just an observation of life. It's not a statement of right or wrong. It's just the way things are. Now, if you listen to the Christian financial, Ramsey. I knew it was Dave. I can't remember last name. Dave Ramsey. They use this verse. Others use this verse. You don't want to be a borrower to the lender. Okay, because if you're a borrower to the lender, you're basically his servant. Right, so they recommend, and I think rightly so, recommend as much as possible do not borrow from people, because unless you really are assured you're going to pay it back, okay? Because otherwise you're at their mercy, whether they have mercy or not. So it's just kind of this is just a general statement though. Rich do rule over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender. And particularly more so in that day than probably in our days, where we have more laws that the lender can't throw you in debtor's prison. You just file for bankruptcy and all that. I don't know how all the rules work, but that's the statement. Okay, again, there's only 4 lines here in the commentary. So move on to the next one. Okay, he who sows wickedness reaps trouble, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. All right, note the verbs in the first line. If you sow, you will reap. So what you sow is what you reap. Right? That's just a general principle in life. If you sow corn, you reap corn. We all know that. I'm not going to belabor that. We all know that works. If you sow wickedness, if you're sowing, what does it mean to sow wickedness, I guess?
Well, in this translation has injustice.
Oh, okay. Let me see what he says. He didn't say anything about that word. As if it were a difficult word. He doesn't. Yeah, I didn't have anything in the commentary about that. Yeah, right. But so, what does it mean to sow injustice or wickedness? Yeah, right. And particularly if you do in the lives of other people. What this proverb is specifically looking at, you don't have to necessarily be doing in the lives of other people, but if you do bad to other people, bad's going to come back. Yeah. It goes around, comes around. Yeah. There you go. She stole it from you, huh? Okay. She stole it from you. Okay. And how true that is, right? We do know that. Generally speaking, my kind of one lines I've used before is all those bandits of the Wild West days, Jesse James, all those guys, none of them lived a full life. Almost none of them did. They all got killed. Okay. Now, not necessarily all of them, but the ones who didn't, like I like to quote this one, is like the Younger, it was the James and Younger boys. Do you know that? Cole Younger and his brother? Because I grew up in Lee Summit, and Lee Summit, we used to have Cole Younger days because he's from Lee Summit. But the reason why they did that, and then they quit doing it because someone says, why are you doing this for a bank robber? You know, well, that's not why. He got caught and he was thrown in jail. He became a Christian. And he lived out a full life to 80 some. I know where he's buried. My brother used to mow the cemetery lawn. He used to mow right over his cemetery, his grave plot. But he became a model citizen. That's why they had Cole Younger days. But so he repented though of that life. Okay, but so he stopped sowing wickedness and started sowing righteousness and whatever after he got out of jail, and he became a model citizen in Lee Summit. So, but otherwise, those Wild West guys didn't live long. Okay, and then also we could say even I use this. And actually have mentioned it once before. Remember the Reign of Terror? What was the Reign of Terror? In France, right?
Yeah,
Robespierre. He was the one go around guillotining everybody.
Yep, he got it.
And he got it himself. Exactly. He got it himself. All right. And it's like you do this, eventually it'll come back to get you. That's what this proverb's saying. So don't sow wickedness unless you want to reap the same in your life. So if you do that, you expect that. All right. A generous man will himself be blessed.
That next line, I don't understand.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. That was the point of Robespierre. What the rod he used to inflict punishment on others was what he was used on him.
It was just like Esther in the book of Esther.
Yes, Haman. Yeah, Haman.
Haman set the news for the Jews.
Right. Exactly. That's it too. The biblical illustration is a perfect illustration, and that's what it's meant. That word is that rod of his fury will be destroyed is kind of saying that what here he says. The one who sows injustice will perish when he experiences the punishing rod of God's fury, but it can also mean that what he used to inflict the wickedness, punishment, will be used against him. Okay, and that was Robespierre. That's why I had Robespierre in my notes here. Or even Voice of the Martyrs. I remember reading that in some of the Voice of the Martyrs when the communists took over Romania and Pastor Wurmbrand was there. He said that some of these communist rulers in Romania were really, really wicked. Just horribly evil and loved to torture people. Loved it just for the thrill, the sadistic thrill of torturing people. And so like one of the guys, he was involved in the immediate takeover by the communists in Romania. All right, and he just loved it. He loved putting people in prison and torturing them. Okay, and so then one day, some guards and all that showed him a new cell that they made up, and this cell was just a horrible cell, just a miserable, rotten place to stay and live in. And they said, "Does it suit your fancy? I mean, basically, is this what you really think should be?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "It's yours." A new regime had taken over and said, "This is where you're staying." He made it as worse as it could possibly be, and then they said, "Well, now it's yours." And that's where he lived out his miserable life. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Will be unable to inflict punishment on those that seek him out, which is that the rod of his fury will fail. He won't be able to inflict the pain of his fury.
Yeah.
Punishment on those whom they seek him out.
Yeah, he won't be able to. God's going to stop it. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's like Robespierre. He was finally stopped, but then it was used against him. Yeah, but that's really what he's saying here in the commentary. God will stop this from happening. He will not be able to carry it on. He will eventually be called to justice. I know sometimes that's Hitler's suicide for him, or others it's hell, but he's eventually called to justice.
Robespierre, commonly they were executed face down, but Robespierre, they did
Face up? I didn't know that, so you could see the guillotine coming down on him. Oh, I did not know that. Wow. Yeah, they made it worse for him. Yeah. Right. And that reminds me now, I'm sorry, I'm going to wander on, but I remember there was some Muslim sheik or whatever in the Middle Ages, something, and he was doing horrible things to a lot of Christians and all that, and treated them really badly in like Turkey or something like that. And then the Huns or the Mongols came by, and later on, he was in cage. They aged like an animal, and they paraded him around everybody because he was the one doing horrible things to other people. And the Mongols, they didn't care about the Christians. He was the ruler, so they put him in a cage like a zoo animal, and treated him like that. And that was how he's gonna live in utter shame and humiliation the rest of his life after all the horrible stuff he did. So he got it in return. Okay, I can't remember the guy's name, but it wouldn't matter anyway. All right, so that's that. Well, now we'll move on. Can we, Bev? Can we move on now? Okay, all right. Okay, a generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. All right, you got anything on this? This is so obvious. But I'll tell you the translation here is kind of another Hebrew idiom. The word, when it says, it's translated generous, it is tov ayin, which means good of eye. Tov ayin. Because there's a ra ayin, which means an evil of eye. This is tov ayin. Literally, it means good of eye. It's translated generous. No, the guy, he has a good eye. He's good of eye. It's a construct term. He's good of eye, and it's translated in English, he's a generous man.
Because he sees, this says also, he sees the need, therefore his eye is directed
And
to
his,
what he's going to do with his heart.
yeah, because honestly, his heart's good, right? So his heart dictates what his eye sees. Or you know, as you know, looking now with that intent, he's looking for good. He's looking to find ways to bless, because he has a heart that's been blessed. We love because he first loved us. So because our heart has been blessed, we are generous in our giving to others because we have been abundantly blessed by God. So that's. I just thought it's just the Hebrew idiom is kind of fun. If you hear these every once in a while. So good of eye as opposed to evil of eye. An evil of eye is a person who would be a very stingy, mean, greedy, Scrooge, kind of guy. Is only out for himself, evil of eye. But good of eye is a generous guy. And so that person is inclined to share his food with the poor. All right? Drive out the mocker, and out goes strife. Quarrels and insults are ended. Oh, we're over time. Oh my gosh, I got so wrapped up. It's 10:34 already. Sorry, I did not know what I was not paying. I was so excited about all this. Okay, we'll start at verse 10 next week. We are, remember, into the Advent season, so I might get back early next week because it's no Gloria in Excelsis. No Gloria in Excelsis. Today I was actually back early for Communion Sunday. You just didn't know it. But so just so you know, so I'll maybe starting class around 9:35 or 9:40. So if you're walking in late, too bad. You're going to miss out on these first couple Proverbs maybe for just 3 more weeks. All right, let's close with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for your word and know that through your word you do train us in the way that we are to go. And we pray that you will deeply impress upon us our need to know your word and to be instructed in your word so diligently that we will be properly trained to walk in your ways. And not only that, but that we will also be equipped to train others, train our own and others in the faith, that they too may know the way that we should all go and that we should walk in your holy ways according to your holy word. We ask this in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen.